Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that really is, once again, it's like, how do I let go of this very consuming, all-consuming relationship? In other words, they're not really moving anywhere in their life. If you have an energetic block, you're going to feel that like you're in a funk, things are off, or you're in a dark, gloomy place and you're just basically uncomfortable. And so how do you really get rid of that discomfort, I think, is the big question today. How do you become more comfortable? How do you become happier? And ultimately, how do you redefine fun? When it comes to healing through a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath, there's going to be no doubt that you have been found, with your pants down in the other neighbor's yard. You're going to have, been left a few items of yourself along the way, meaning you're going to find yourself really, beyond boundaries, risk taking, not knowing quite where things are at in the relationship, this like sort of head swoony, lovey dovey phase in the relationship, which is all consuming and very rewarding. It's very intoxicating. It's exciting, things are going anywhere and everywhere, and then the narcissist is sort of giving you all the pleasures of the world and then some, and then this becomes really what you define as fun, what you go after, what you look forward to, what you plan on your day-to-day. It's like, even though it's not solid, you're sort of living on a cloud, which can become like a cloud of confusion, that you're living on basically a cloud of confusion as things to begin to get stormy with the relationship. And unfortunately, those really thrilling and exciting relationships, also in the positive, they can swoop right over, just like a gal on the Weather Channel would be like, yep, through the Gulf wind, they're going to land up over there, and it's going to go in the dark side. In other words, the dark side. A lot of people say, oh, this is becoming scary. There's all sorts of words that I think people are experiencing, but in the midst of the relationship, in the midst of the abuse, in the midst of the chaos of it all, that's very intoxicating, distracting, and can be all consuming, meaning of your time, your money, your energy, your hopes and dreams, your family's hopes and dreams. You got a house on layaway that you're working on for you guys, and a trip to somewhere with a car that you're going to rent that's like a fancy car, and you've got you've maybe talked about these things and you've like slammed your hand on the table. Yeah, this is going to happen. Rub the other guy's knee or what have you. And it was like, you thought it was that sort of bonding, The problem with a narcissist or as a psychopath is you're bonding basically to like someone in a wax museum. They ain't real. It's really scary, and it can make you feel scared. What do you mean by meaning? Because they're phony baloney, because they put on an act, a show, a sham, a charm, a shazam, a hoopla. It can be very entertaining, and it seems like maybe this person is always happy, charming, engaging, but unfortunately it can become a lot of wooey, or basically fluey, meaning it is a sick relationship. You're getting heartsick, troubled, confused, uncomfortable. Things are scary. You're finding yourself like on the dark side, on the wrong side of the picket fence, and the weather ain't looking so good, and and it's dysregulation. It's your emotions and your hormones are clashing. There's a gap that is basically between where you want to be and where this relationship is, and it becomes like a real conflict of tension, and sparks fly, and it might either be within you that all these sparks fly. You might be ending up bottling up a lot of this and you don't even really know what's going on. That's become problematic because it's kind of like you've ended up in their yard, on their playground, according to their rules, according to their paradigm, which means their way of looking at things in relationships, which means you feel like you fit right in, like honey goo goo, melting over a cinnamon roll. I mean, you feel that you are just like, you feel that this is your happy place. Like, it gets really good. Everything is kind of matching together. You feel things are in alignment. Things are like matching up. However, the narcissist, for that matchup, even though you've got it real inside and you might be pushing yourself or whatever, oftentimes living in denial, too afraid to admit to yourself the truth, the red flags, the ones that you push down because pleasing the narcissist or the psychopath becomes more important, i.e. an addiction or a lower quality of life or integrity of life for you, hence a lot of problems. The stormy days, the stormy nights, why is this, why are we disappointed? Or why is this person so down and glum? Why can't they just be? In other words, a narcissist, when you find yourself sort of under the dark side, meaning sort of under their control, if you will, meaning under their paradigm, under their way of looking at things, which means you literally have like walked onto their show, their stage kit, or you've just walked onto their blueprint, or you've just walked onto their sitcom that they've all laid out, their stage theater, whatever it is, and you don't know that you're walking into that. Like, you're like a character according to what they want. In other words, you're not really playing you in this show. You don't, you end up playing someone else in this show, and you might think, oh, it's the name of love, or I'm becoming very studious, or I'm becoming a real night owl, or I'm just becoming a party animal, or I'm living life to the fullest, or this is the good life, or you're telling yourself really all these lies, probably, though, because the narcissist sort of inflicts this sort of false persona, what you don't realize. So by virtue of that, you're living in a lie and simultaneously dragging yourself along with it in telling a lie and living in denial yourself. And this becomes very problematic because this will create a chronic unhappy or empty feeling state, disconnected, really empty. That is scary when you don't have the you filling you up. It's like, what else is filling me up? A lot of the goo goo gaga, whatever the narcissist is spinning off or needing or raging about, their erratic emotions are really part of dysregulation, which means, if you can think about like what, how do you become more comfortable in this? And a lot of people want to kind of point the finger and say, well, I got out of the relationship because they were such a bad person. But yet a lot of people don't really see that or feel that about the narcissist or the psychopath. They've got the wool over or whatever they're doing everywhere. So they've got their own hit parade, or they've got their own entourage, or they have their own, I don't want to say blueprint, but they have their own, I don't want to say floor plan either, but they have their own stage already laid out for you. In other words, they're going to be there for you as long as kind of they need, and then they're going to already have pre-written a role for you where your character kind of goes out, and then they kind of move on, and then the door slams, and then the lights go down, and then the theater is like clapping. And then you're like the one in the dark, in the shadows. That's like, I just had this whole segment of my life that it wasn't even feel like it was written by me anymore. And because it was like written for you, usually by someone who's very good at that kind of stuff, bringing people in, getting people together, throwing parties, social connections. I mean, these are your can-do people, and not to say they aren't wonderful and fabulous and talented in all these different things, but there's a certain spin-off in relationships that they do, which is kind of like if you think about a factory and like where is the, after they've made this thing, like where's the pollution? It's like there's there's some pollution coming out of their relationship. Meaning there's going to be some waste product. There's going to be some aftermath, and I apologize if that video was off, but anyway, I hope you guys can still hear and see me. But so in other words, so I like to use analogies. Why? Because when we're talking about psychology, as I've studied in psychology and in my master's, as well in English in education, one thing that is really important to me in the study of it, and each student has their own sort of situation with it, whether they want to become forensic or therapists or what have you. But one thing that became important to me is that it's really got to be applied psychology, because you can, while in your studies, read through all these different and you conduct all these studies, in academia, improve this, that, and the other thing. But I'm like, what is applied? So I really want to help you by using analogies, help it make applied to you so you can kind of see and kind of shorten the healing cycle and get onto other better parts like redefining fun for you or redefining what happiness is, as you kind of begin to better understand the relationship with the narcissist. So when we talk about sort of like waking up or feeling like the relationship, what are the beginning signs? Things are not comfortable. You might begin to get paranoid. This person is moody. They're not always fun anymore. They're not always groovy woovy. They're not always the knight in shining armor or the nitrous in shining armor. You see another side of them. They might, in other words, there's a real private part of them maybe that is their insecurity, that is their dysregulation, their own discomfort that prevents them from fully being present in relationships. In other words, these aren't your lifetimers that are in relationships that are like, yes, honey, we're at our 50th wedding anniversary and we're going to Fiji because we already built a new house there on the property. Those aren't, they tend to not be very loyal to people. They will be very loyal to people who make them look good, who have a fancier party, who have a better offer opportunity. But really, they're really into sort of the superficial. Meaning, what does it look like on the outside? If you ask me, that is very tough. So they live very differently from people who have empathy, compassion, heart, want the real thing. Coca-Cola, you want the real McCoy, you want the Marlboro Man or the Marlboro woman or whatever it is that you want the real deal, and you kind of have, some engagement, fun, excitement, great times that can't be capped by anybody else, or something there's je ne sais quoi, something unique about this person that truly is different. And it's probably because there really is something different about this person, whether you can see it or not. Meaning, this person might be hiding a profound insecurity. A narcissist or a psychopath, their own insecurity, dysregulation, which means really nothing more that the outbursts, the discarded telephone calls where they don't call you back. Oops, click, and then you don't hear from them for a while and it hurts your feelings, and they just sort of, casually pick up the phone or act like nothing happened. And you're like, yeah, we were having a this or planning that, and then something got pulled away, and then it wasn't sort of a nice ending, and they don't really sort of, butter up a wound when they see you hurting. They won't really be like, oh, I'm sorry. You won't ever get that guttural response from them. You might have an intellectual response, oh, I'm sorry, or you didn't have to feel that way, or why do you always feel that, is usually the response, meaning there's some sort of projection that's meant to encapsulate or keep away the narcissist or the psychopath from, like, dealing with your feelings. In other words, hey, the fact that you left me dangling in the kids until 2, or the fact that you didn't make a, confirm the date, or the fact that, you don't really want to talk about something, or, your excuses, or whatever it is, there's always going to be some sort of touchstone spot where they don't really come through, or something isn't sort of meshing and measuring up. And then you're usually sort of begin then engaging in either becoming very, very paranoid. Maybe your emotional investment is a lot, but paranoid that they might be leaving, paranoid that you did something wrong, usually is where you feel the blame ending. And then, sort of self-scrutiny begins on heavy and strong. And then the narcissist will generally lob it on, but it's their dysregulation, meaning because a narcissist, they are of a certain sort of personality type or skill set. And what more is that when we're just talking about the narcissist? And we can go a little long today. So, because I want to try to get a lot in, and so you can kind of understand what we mean by sort of waking up in the dark side of the playground, or somewhere what you got to get out of. You're not feeling good, you actually don't want to go back there again. That would be okay. But yet you want some sort of bonding or closure. And how do you redefine fun and sort of get happy back in your life again? Because it can become a real detour. It can become sort of a mainstay life. These detour events, you think you're still on the path somewhere, but when you really look at the relationship from like a drone level, you're like, this, if I really were to admit it, my relationship is plagued with this and this. And even though I don't want to admit it to myself, 1 through 20, you could name it out and write it out. And you need, just when we do this here on the channel, you need to have your pen and paper there right away and just write it without censorship. Meaning, when we talk about these exercises that I talk about, you want to do them just without criticizing yourself, because oftentimes you've gotten a real heavy duty sense of self-criticism based on a lot of narcissistic reactions, broken hearts, broken promises, commitments that didn't go through, or things that, you had a fight that you're really embarrassed about, and, things haven't really come together, but you're sort of still together after that, or things are just uncomfortable. And life does not need to be lived that way. You do not need to live in fear, staying up too late, missing work, crying at your desk, crying in the grocery store, being furious, not knowing where your girl is, where things stand, where are we on the house, all this investment and sort of angle. And then oftentimes there's a lot of self-accusation and self-scrutiny that ends up being dealt with by the people who are the other party, the receiving end, in the in a relationship with a narcissist, because largely they're of a different cloak, if you will. They live for sort of admiration and feeding their ego, like is an all the time thing, like almost as if they need it like milk in the morning and ice cream in the evening. They need it to fuel their soul. So it's like who they are. They live life on a stage. They might seem very cool. They might be writers or musicians, or really great, like funny people that have just hilarious personalities, and you really love them and their family, or whatever it is they're doing, or whatever it is, you've known them since college, that you share the same funny bone, like but what have you, though, is that there becomes a certain a problem when we talk about really the self-criticism, and then the self-doubt that really cuts away and darkens and hides your truth from you, which is what we're trying to get at. So believe it or not, if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Okay, so anyway, that's the 70s. But anyway, believe it or not, when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, they are very insecure. The narcissist lives life from the inside out. So, the outside in, meaning just like you might need whatever coffee in the morning, like to feel good. Like if you might need your sandwich or your plate of spaghetti or whatever it is that fills you up, and you're like, that's totally what I need, or whatever drink it is, or whatever it is, your routine, your ritual, and that really takes care of you. I feel a narcissist, they really are like that, but they have a different need when it comes to society. So they're very outward looking. They're, oftentimes very extroverted, which means they really like to talk to a lot of people, or can be out with a lot of people, or seemingly be very public figures. The kind of whoever gets everybody together, but they really have that same need for admiration. So their ego, in other words, what's my Facebook feed? What's my Instagram feed? What's my headline? What's my news? Always what's my likes. So as you can see, with all the likes in this sort of yes and no playground, that binary playground is just a perfect thing for a narcissist to sort of latch into and really base their own credibility on, even if it could be furthest from the truth of their happiness, further from the truth of their fulfillment or who they are. It's who they might put on Instagram. It's who they put on Facebook, and they can have, all these wonderful appearing, but that does not mean real. And appearing, does not the castle make. Do you want a castle made of air, or whatever that Jimi Hendrix song was? Or, castles in the sand that are melting away, or do you really want something true that is yet hidden from you? Then that's part of your gloom, and that's been part of now woven into the difficult part of this story, is that you've sort of overridden that and then allowed their needs to sort of get supplanted into your own. And so you become a transplant, from sort of your own authenticity into thinking something else is authentic when it is not. When do you discover this? When you realize they're not there from you. When you realize they've got a trip with another person, and this person they happen to be cheating on you. When they broke the business deal and you find out that they ran away with a quarter of your profits, and then you don't know where your keys are. When you find your car keyed, or you find them, you find that they have a double life. You find that they are actually married to somebody else and living down the block. Or we hear all this in the celebrity world. So-and-so bought a house, aside from so-and-so. All this, this is pathological behavior. This is in the news and the headlines. When I talk about psychology being applied, realize that this is not what you should gauge your life by. Do not be fooled by that. Whatever time you discover this, you do not need to live the copper tone life. Bask until you're blistered, and then you can peel away and find out you've got skin cancer. But that's what would look fun. The copper tone, that's what they advertised, or whatever it is that was part of what so you have to realize that you have a lot of subconscious beliefs and disbeliefs that are holding you back and keeping you in a funk, and you didn't even realize you have the keys out, but you do, my dear, my dude, you have those keys. So what I'm trying to say is that the narcissist and the psychopath, they live as differently from you. So they run on a different fuel. Like cars run on the same gas, but and maybe there's different octanes or different gradients, but I would say it's as different as diesel and regular, meaning they got a different engine in there. It runs on a different formula. It runs on a different chemistry. And if you put diesel fuel in your regular engine, boy, you better hope to even make it out of the parking lot, or you might need a brand new engine. Why? Because you just ruined yours. You get, some other sort of fuel working in your system that don't work. Like, it's not right for your blood type. It's not right for your permanence. It's not right for your integrity. Ultimately, the narcissist, they break under this pressure. And they, so what is the superficiality? What is the dysregulation? What is this about? And this is why so many people get mixed up and are so hard on themselves, or I'm so unlovable because this person broke up with me, or because my family this, or they've now defined themselves as branded with some sort of problematic problem, which isn't the problem, but you've made it up that way in your mind, and that's erroneous, flawed thinking. But the output, the pollution from the factory, the end ingredient, the aftermath that you go home with, basically can be that gook that clutters away your vision of what is your authenticity, what is your truth, and and that is acceptable, and that's what reigns. And it's not trying to live a lie or pacify and always saying yes and like living life. So getting back to the narcissist and why it's so difficult, because they run on that ego feed. They run on admiration. They run, they feed on that. They want their life to be fueled by that. So the more, and then that's why some people can have lives completely generated and running on that. Like, look at, Paris Hilton. Yes, she's a wonderful business owner, but a lot of it is, socialite, these things, So anyway, getting back to really what is the discomfort. And the discomfort that you feel is purely the discomfort, the insecurity, the frail ego of the narcissist. Because if things start to get real, the narcissist feels threatened. You must realize that this has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you provoking anything bad, being too needy, being too sensitive, or the other things that they might lash your way. Why do you need this? You're too clingy. We're not ready yet. This is too soon. And then that can get dragged on. And then you can actually know in your gut what is right, but you override it. You're listening to something else when this is trying to tell you something else. And you're like, what is it, narcissist? You want to give it a try because you're so wonderful, and you're trying to, did I hear that? Yeah, and then you go, yeah, let me jump in the playground and we're going to continue. And then, oops, you scraped your knee and you've got, all sorts of cuts and bruises, and they're like over in some sort of other swing, holding hands, blowing bubbles with some other new friend that they just made, and you're hurting for real, and they're not there, nor are they sharing the pain of your bum knee or your bum back or your bum hurt or whatever it is that you just got hurt in the playground while you were sort of going, after them, and you don't realize you lose your bearings. You lose, if you're with them long enough, you will lose your sense of reality. What does that mean? Because you will be so, your own perspective will be so discarded. It'll be so devalued. It'll be so minimized and dismissed and sort of, told, just don't think about that now. Don't worry about that now. Or they seem to bypass it with something else more exciting, more fun, more grandiose. That is the superficial. So, I mean, these are the special boat rides, whatever it is you're doing, yoga, hot yoga, air yoga with a puppy and some potato chips with this person. And, maybe you found that, you're doing these fun things that you thought you couldn't do anywhere else. Well, guess what? You can take hot yoga on the 36th floor, have a 360 view, and bring your puppy and some potato chips if you want. And you can do your own hot yoga with your puppy or with a glass of wine or whatever these other meetup groups can offer you with, there's so much opportunity out there for you, but you can't see and be in that mode because it's this dark valley that you are lulled into. and you don't realize that you can bring yourself out, but there's a certain hiddenness and a certain deadly silence of that so problem will sort of lead you into, when the silence really is golden. The silence is very dark and scary. It's made to feel scary with a narcissist because they're not in touch with a realistic sense of ego. So when they go off in relationships, it's really like a kid who did not get their flavor of lollipop. Hey, guess what? You got pink instead of green. That's all they have. Be happy you got one. I don't, and then you're a bad, da da da. You didn't get me the pink one is basically what they're saying. In other words, but the narcissist, see, they have a whole list of who they want you to be, and then you find it very difficult to measure up to that, because a narcissist, they already have a stage list that they've already written you into, and you might be guy number 1, girl number 3, or girl with a cat. You might be guy with a car. Whatever it is you're to them, you're just kind of boiled down to some specifics, and you're just sort of playing out in their realm, in their fantasy, in their superficial meaning. When it's all from the outside. It's all validation and attention seeking. If they can get everybody's attention, and everybody feels like, I couldn't quite get a word in, but that person was so funny, so it was so great for me to shut up anyway. So in other words, you become agreeing to the fact that you should not be able to interact with this person because they're a one-person show or whatever it is. They act that way. In other words, the narcissist, their ego is like, they're enough for the party, is how they feel about themselves. And when it comes to being real, like, guess what? We got the sniffles. Or guess what? We're having macaroni and cheese for dinner. Or we're going to just do this. The narcissist feels very, very threatened and uncomfortable if they're not always sort of feeding that. They have an insatiable desire for power and control. And so their rage and all their acting out, even though it seems like they're pushing you away, it's really a way for them to further control what's going on in the relationship. Even though you feel like they're angry, and they're angry at you, and that maybe they want to work it out, and then it'll work some closures, and then you end up trying even harder, or just, you end up spending this sort of irrational or sporadic time away, and then the other person isn't happy. So both sides are kind of not knowing where to have the ends come together and meet at. Like, there's no fusion. Your reality is becoming disjointed. And it can become very scary because the narcissist will be so invalidating. The psychopath will be so invalidating and so brainwashing of your needs that it'll make you feel that you don't even own any. So when it gets that persistent, that chronic, you've been with it that long, you were raised by it, you were married to it, your family has it in the house, you're in the neighborhood, your workplace, wherever it is, there is a problem. And it's usually a problem with the narcissist is a relationship is that it's never a problem for them. It's always a problem for other people. And it's always like you disappointed them. You didn't, and it's a very, standard pattern. But getting back to the superficial and their need for validation. So if they, and then and with that also comes their need to feel that they only should be aligned with certain types of other people, which means that they feel that they should only associate with people of high status, which they come in like the King of Islam or Queen of Victorian age or whatever it is, and they feel, that they are of that status. So within, they're owning that. So, and then people then will feel that magnetism. They will feel that attitude with latitude. They'll feel that pressure, that tension from that person's ego. And people will usually respond to it accordingly. Give them the laughs. Give them, the support in the story. Give them and feed them something, and then be who they want, or be who, already be sort of who they see themselves with. So the problem with the narcissist is they will project their needs, their unmet needs, or their insecurities, all their bad stuff onto other people. And they'll turn it around and then say it's you. In other words, this is too predictable, which means commitment, meaning loyalty, which means you want me to be true, you want me to be present. So they'll redefine it as, you're too needy, or I'm not ready for that. Or, they will just redefine and refuse. And this is a way of controlling, because they're always able to kind of move people in when they're ready and out when they're not. So when you're with them long enough, you'll really, really be able to feel their grip more and more. In other words, you kind of feel like you're not moving of your own volition or free will. In fact, you might even find that your free will is missing from the relationship. And I think you need to have that to make you happy, and to be at your fullest self is your free will, and to have that liberated. You see, but that gets clamped down, that gets spoken for. The narcissist is like, basically at an auction is like, yeah, I'll own your whole emotional body. I'll control how you feel when you're up, when you're down, when you're here, when you're gone. I'll do that for you. And then people don't realize that the narcissist, even though they say that they're not making any of the decisions and it's all loose, even though they are making all the decisions and it's not loose, it's very restrictive. And you might not have any say in what constitutes the relationship. And people are, famously will say yes when they mean no, do things when they don't want to, i.e., get married or have sexual encounters or have dates or do things when they really know that they're not getting their needs met. So here's then where the self-denial becomes a real pinpoint of your story, which means you've got a whole lot of self-doubt, and denial basically hammered down within you, and so that's what you have to get out. In fact, even though the narcissist can't see me, what makes me really happy is when the narcissist or psychopath doesn't see me, what secretly makes me happy is. And if you write 1 through 20, you'll begin to get reacquainted with yourself, and it won't feel so scary. You won't feel like you're on the wrong side of the fence, because the darkness is really when things become destructive and you're not seeing through things. You're not being able to see through things clearly. Things are getting murky. Things are getting, meaning psychologically murky, emotionally murky, which means your energy and motion is going to get really cruddy. You're going to feel sick, lazy, down, depressed, lack of appetite, whatever all the situation is, that can be the outpouring, the after effect, the residual effect or impact or influence of this relationship, and it's sort of, so time for a story. So what would be the time for a story? When you really wake up to your truth. When you really, find one day that you're paying the price, or you're not where you want to be on the road, on the road. In other words, at this time in your life, you really want to be feeling and doing and sort of be engaging with life in a specific way. You personally, so you, very long time ago, had a dream, a vision, something that was born within you. So in other words, that can't be stolen or taken away or dismissed. That is still there. So in other words, that sort of generative part of you that pushes, for certain experiences when you allow it and when you nurture it, but that you might be so emotionally distant from yourself that you might have a very cold and distant relationship with that depth. And it might be that's what might be keeping you kind of stuck in this relationship, which is sort of realizing that you've had their image of what they've needed in front and devalued and discarded your own, and then been in agreement, or and that's not an agreeable reality for you. You can't simultaneously disown and be agreeable to yourself. Like you're creating an environment, an internal environment, sort of neurochemical and neurophysiological environment within that doesn't see clearly, see solutions, and live in homeostasis. Things will get off very quickly, including your happiness and what you define as fun. In other words, the superficiality, the getting the likes, the sort of showing up there for the right concert, the right dates, the right dinners. With COVID, with the pandemic, or with things just growing in time, you might want to find that a relationship grow and merge and sort of back away from that sort of jealous and covetous sort of superficiality way of life. So superficial meaning sort of always wanting more, not being content to just be. Not saying, man, you're just in a white t-shirt and you look great today. Like whatever that Jessica Simpson song is, I'm, in a t-shirt on and I never felt so beautiful, or whatever, for a guy or a girl. In other words, where you can just be yourself and you are enough. Like you are enough. Like you need to get off the leash. The narcissist will have you on a leash. They will, saying how you should walk, when you should eat, when you should come here, now you should go away, now you should play with these, when you're like, but I don't want to do that. And the narcissist will be like, well, that's what we're going to be doing. And you're like, I don't want to be, going over to neighbors' houses to 2 a.m. Like, I want to have like a more home life. I want to, do some interior decorating. I want to redo the deck. Like, I want us like to be where we're at, like where it's at. And we're always sort of running away. You might feel they're always, running away or in the avoidance. In other words, they're not there for the time of day, time of lunch, time for tea. They're not there for time for tech, but they're sure there for Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, text whatever they're texting, whoever they're texting, and secretive that they don't share. So this gets, people feel very minimal then. And see, a narcissist, when things get too real, they feel too minimal. They feel, well, this isn't on stage. This can't be good for me. I'm not going to get likes from this, so why should I do this? This isn't enhancing my image, so why should I really have this in my life? See, they're living from a different place. They're running on a different fuel. And if you put in that different fuel or try to, your engine might go a little, but eventually you're going to wear your parts out. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to feel like crud. You're going to have to redo, detox, and get out of that cycle of thinking, being, and behaving. Because what is that dysregulation? A narcissist, when they feel all of a sudden that they're not getting those accolades, they feel very threatened. They feel attacked. They even though there's no like threat around, they feel threatened. They feel threatened having humility, taking a knee. Ooh, ouch, and you might have a sense of humility or some downtime. Your hair might be out of place. You might not be perfectly coiffed and dressed. You might not always want to go out all the time. You might want to have Jiffy Pop popcorn on the stove and wear your jammies, and make some pizza in the oven and just be whatever. But see, the defining of being yourself usually has a negative, downcast, emotional coding, if you will, if you've been with a relationship for some time, because how they elevate themselves is through basically avoidance of their own security. So their dysregulation, their insecurity is that they're very afraid to deal and face with. They're very uncomfortable with certain feelings about themselves where they have some inadequacies, meaning those people who seem to be the biggest playboys, playgirls, are usually the people who can't commit. What do you mean you're 87 and this is your 11th wife and she is 1/3 your age and you're doing this again? Yes, these people go on and on and on. I have met them myself. And so you have to realize that when you realize that it's not that you are a disagreeable person because you seem disagreeable to them. It's their ego, that if their ego is not being polished, if they can't take a knee, if they don't have any humility, if you can't see them with their jammies or with a hole in their socks, they're regressing some other place, and usually that is where they are usually numbing themselves, substance abuse, whatever it is, gambling. They will use sex to also numb out and control their emotions. So, I thought they were so in love with me. We've had this really passionate relationship for 5 years. Well, isn't that heartbreaking to find out, wow, that's how this person managed their emotions? Thank you very much. They're now going with Abigail over there. Oh, that feels real good. That you were there to help someone regulate their emotions. That kind of cuts you out of the picture. That, that's why people feel invisible, cut off at the head. I don't feel like they really get me. I feel, people are in, I can't say, it's on my tongue. I can't quite define it, but something's not quite right. Well, instead of putting it all about them, why don't we talk about you? You're feeling discomfort. You're feeling something is not right. How long do you want to live with that lie, that denial, really what it is going on? That you're living by the red flag. I mean, you might as well, have red flag, waving out of your car all the time right in front of you, because you become very blinded to it. That's why the narcissist and definitely the psychopath want you blind to their manipulation. In fact, they will get a kick out of who they can hustle, scam, have kids with different people, go out on dates with different people. They were just married, committed. It confounds me how many intimate relationship with different people these people can have, and publicly, like you see in celebrity, or personally. I mean, just, people in your community, business leaders, non-business leaders, you have it. And so that feeling of being lost really is because you've been sort of shut out from yourself. You've had the door to yourself shut out. Narcissist, thank you very much, but come in and meet me. No, I won't have you in, but I'm glad you met me. I mean, it's basically is what they're saying. And so you it's a time you have to recover from and come to your own senses with. And that's very scary. That is part of the fear. And realize that this discomfort really is fear of that there is something wrong and you must pay. It's trying to get your attention. So if something is trying to get your attention and you keep ignoring it, eventually you're going to have a really big hive of an itch or something. It's really going to get your attention, and you're going to have to pay attention. You're going to become sick. You're going to become divorced. You're going to find out the truth. You're going to become financially ruined. You're going to have, a bum vacation. You're going to have some. Have some unbecoming habits. Something that needs to be reviewed and revised. And you can redefine after you've been through this, because with a narcissist, having a good life, having a good time, what is fun is defined in a specific way. And that might no longer fit you. That might now be destructive or no longer right for you. It might not be most creative or enhancing of your life, because ultimately, when you're unhappy, when you're lost and basically out of touch from yourself, it's because you've spent some time denying your own happiness. So your happiness was like, let's go. We're like, let's go now. Like, your happiness is could have, gotten your attention. But no, maybe they seem cooler, more people, whatever it is, the excuses, remember the narc badge because. Well, now, instead, I decide. You need to redefine what it is, because what was in front of you before oftentimes is not what needs to be in front of you now, or is not above you, in front of you, on the sides, underneath you, or part of your backbone now. So getting a backbone now is looking squarely and saying, you know what, that relationship, what were they lacking? This person might have had some erratic emotions. Whatever, there's empathy lacking. So there's certain things lacking in the relationship with a narcissist, which creates a void, a divot, in a hole in your life. So realize, because because they're so uncomfortable looking and dealing with certain things, specifically their own role models, their own indicators and directors, their own internal locus of control for happiness is not there. So where oftentimes you need to locate what we call in psychology as your locus of control. So your locus of control of happiness is within. But if you've answered yes, yes, yes to be along with or for this, and it's caused you to disown or say no, no, no to certain things within, you need to sort of reignite that within and say, oh my gosh, that's why I've lived in that denial for so long, and I was separated from that. My life was not in alignment with like how I wanted it to be, who I wanted it to be. You were maybe striving, but in that became the procrastinating, avoiding of reality, avoiding of what you really want, what you really have, and putting it all together, which means, sort of being able to get that view, which is the role of metacognition, which is for your ability to get comfortable looking at certain decisions that you had perhaps made either correctly or incorrectly, and then say, now I decide instead. So now I decide instead. And then also to trust, to have that and experience that within. In fact, that could be a goal. Is I'm really, Peace and Harmony brought this up on her video, and she's talked about how important it is to have self-trust and how that will bring glow back to your world, warmth back to your world, having emotional closeness with yourself back in the world. Because if you've been with this type of personality that has emotional dysregulation, which means they can be kind of erratic, thrill-seeking, fun-seeking, risk-taking, cause you to push your boundaries, cause you to push your schedule, wear you out, broke you down, but wasn't it fun? It's always fun until somebody gets hurt. And then, but if you've had that happen too many times, people learn to sort of lose faith, and then lose faith in themselves, and then lose that sort of inner core, which is meant to function automatically. So it's kind of like that automatic process needs to be rebooted. It needs to be reset. It needs some, you need to basically take off some of the components to get to it. And so to stop particularly a lot of the, stop particularly some of the activities that we're engaged in during this relationship. And so you can say a stop to the judging, a stop to the always having to achieve and impress, a stop to always having to, whatever that is, or, something getting out of control. You didn't like the looks of things, the way things were going. You didn't like how you felt when, these are the areas where you can see where you compromised too much. And now that you decide, you can see where you compromised. I really compromised and made a poor decision when. And, the fuel of this oftentimes is because you did not believe in yourself. And if you look at the poor decisions, they're really leading up to a teaching, and they all have something to teach. And what is that paramount ultimate lesson for you. You can ask that question again and again and again, but you can regain sort of why you felt so lost is because those type of people, they cannot reflect back to you your feelings, your needs, and putting it all out there and then having that satisfied and having that engaged, that emotional climate where you said, I really need to focus on, or I really want to have, and instead they kept, but now you can say, I decide now instead to, and realize where things sort of bombed out. They bottomed out, and instead, redefine what it means for you to have fun. You don't have to be so self-conscious. The superfluous things that you were doing, what can they be doing now? Even though they thought it was crazy, what I really love to do is what I've really, one thing, even though other people think it's stupid or foolish, what I really love to do is. And there you're going to find your nuggets of truth. You're going to find your gems, and your diamonds in a rough. Even though it seems so indulgent, what I really want in a relationship is to. Even though it makes me feel warm and fuzzy, what I really need to do is. Even though it makes really, even though I've been avoiding this, what I really need to admit to myself about these red flags are. And begin to understand where the dysregulation came in from the part of the narcissist, where oftentimes these people, because they can't commit, they can't live a truth, they have a pathological need to lie. They will lie if they don't have to. They get a kick out of lying. They get a kick out of pulling one over on people, telling fake stories, telling fake names, introducing themselves to people as something else. Whatever it is, these people they do this to entertain themselves or what have you. And you can say, it's okay for me now to redefine my fun and find what is fun to you. And it might be something very different. And that might be, and what I find truly exciting is, now that I've been through all that, what I find truly exciting is, so when you can kind of dial in your moments, whether you need to have more calm, more relaxed, more energizing, more intellectual, more learning, more fun, more carefree, what kind of way can you now redefine what having a good time means for you? And now make that okay, because usually to the narcissist or the psychopath, it ain't there anymore. So, and we can do more, and there's just we could talk for so much at length about this, but realize, even though it hurts, what's really fun for me to do is. Even though it hurts, what's really fun for me to do is. And what's most, the other question, so what I want to also help you to understand when we get to this is kind of coming out on the energetic side, where you can begin to agree to become disagreeable, and that you're okay with just being. And so, in other words, people feel so bad because they have felt like they're a disagreeable type of person, because the narcissist can be so combative, argumentative, antagonistic, which means starting of fights. They can just provoke these things out of nowhere, and then they will make up, and then they'll think like, well, this is what's exciting, and this is what's buzzworthy for a relationship. And some people don't want to spend their whole life fighting, arguing, in conflict, wondering, coveting things, never having enough, being, some people, with a narcissist, one thing I think that typifies is the feeling that something is missing, and it's that lack of empathy, and it's that dysregulation from the narcissist or the psychopath, meaning because they don't have a real ego, which means who they really are, true blue, which means, yeah, this is me, I get sick. Yeah, this is me, I don't always look great. Hey, this is me, I'm not always funny, I'm not always manly, I'm not always womanly. But the, what, unconditional positive self-regard is a really good gift that you need to get from this. Unconditional positive self-regard. You need to grow that garden within yourself and really get back to what it is to nurture yourself rather than to give it all away. Because I can bet you your bottom dollar that you gave away a lot of yourself to this person. And you might still feel like you're giving it all away. Do not give it all away. Give to yourself. Give unto yourself. And giving to myself really means, right now, 1 through 20, giving to myself, peace and harmony really means. So in the privacy of this video, what does giving to yourself really mean? Not giving to the narcissist so you can give to yourself, or making sure that they're happy and then you're okay. Making sure that they don't cheat on you and that you're attractive enough, or that you're doing certain things to be a certain way and you're not happy. You feel like you're living a hollow life, but it's better than it used to be. So you might be having a lot of these certain things that you've been pushing away. And so, looking at, and instead of, and saying, hey, you know what, I'm really not that. You can say, I'm really not that dumb. I'm really not that stupid. I really am these things. And then begin to own some things that you didn't feel that you owned, and then fill up that void within you, because those outbursts are kind of traumatizing, and you can feel kind of shut out on a different dimension. Like, what am I, not good enough? What is this, chop pastrami? In other words, why does it always have to be a battle? Where these people are antagonistic and combative. That's because that's how they are. They have an insatiable need for power and control, which means it's about power and control. So sometimes you don't want to be under that, so you gotta get off the leash. You gotta begin to calm down and ignore some of what made the narcissist happy, and realize all that they had devalued in you is for you to prize and glory right now, because that can cause you to disown yourself. Like, this isn't my arm, this isn't my head, this isn't my leg, this is my man's, I'm Mrs. Doubtfire, or I'm not myself. I mean, that's so sad. You're Mrs. So-and-so and you're not yourself, or you're Mr. So-and-so and you're not yourself. Get to become reacquainted, resensitize yourself. Like when I talk about here on the channel and in the book that I'm working on, how important it is for you to resensitize yourself, not only physically, emotionally, etherically, which means energetically, but also within your conscience. Meaning your conscience, getting into surrounding yourself with different elements, like different purifying elements, like the fire element is very purifying. Whether you go and seek out, candles, or glowing candles, or spa therapies, or a hot bath, men and women, with different warming fragrances, not all happy, but some more sensual or reflective, or, having one of your moments being one of, what you need to do more of. Maybe you need to work on, owning some better parts of yourself and making and then really getting over that for good, so you don't continue to have that cycling within you. And then making time to actually do these things. How do you resensitize that? And then how do you your other dimensions of your being, your higher order, your divine order, now that you're coming out of that chaos? What does this look like? What does this mean for you? What does it mean for your life to become whole and healed and energized and functioning? What would it be like without worry and without guilt? Would that be okay with you? So you got to realize there might be some strings still holding you on. So you have to realize that you are because you're there because you want to be. And you can kind of see that and realize that then what has the narcissist then, what was in front of you now that you now need to have more in front of you or more right in front of you right now? So do you need more therapeutic, retrieve, reflective, sort of solace and solitary? Do you need to, work on the etheric energies? Do you need to work on getting your senses up, learning, healing sounds, healing frequencies, going out into nature, instead of always listening to the computer beeps, the rustling of the leaves only, the rushing of the wind only, the looking at the candles only, bringing in the natural elements, just having wind massage you for a little bit, wiping away all the strings that have been holding you back from defining your happiness and your fun and your glory. And why can't that be on a more consistent basis? In other words, why have you made happiness such an inconsistent reality? And why is your reality so inconsistent with what you want? Why is there this gap? So let's work on closing the gap here. Let's go and really do it. Let's be serious about this. Let's go for it and really go for the guts, go for the glory, go for the aha moment, go for the breakthrough, go for, I'm hopping out of that yard where I was and I ain't going back there and I ain't looking back because there was too much doubt and confusion over there. And I didn't come to light there. My life, I did not light up there. And you have to own this and see this, not how a judge sees it, but this is just a knowing state. And just say, make a commitment. Even though I don't know what it means, I'm going to commit to more knowing and growing moments. Even though I don't know yet what it means, I'm going to commit to more knowing and growing moments. And that my involvement and my happiness and my metamorphosis and my excitement and my thrill of existence begins and awaits me. When you can proclaim that and begin to get a full 360 on you, when you can feel that on a 360 and hold that for a moment, you are exercising a real, a kinesthetic healing sort of from the inside throughout your cellular structure. And you have to realize that you have to let go and just allow that healing energy to displace your being. In other words, for that moment, you feel all of a sudden clarity, more clear, more intelligent, more peaceful, or something more understood, more accepting. Self-esteem. Try it on for size. Go little by little. You got this. You can do this. We'll talk soon. Have a great one. This is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share. Please subscribe. And for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, visions, because you really need to be a visionary and have that an inner vision. We're going to be working on images. I really want you to focus, understand how important images, even one or two, are so significant to your life. And what is the meaning you draw from it to you? What are these core images? These become like archetypal understandings, and these become important for you to know and get about yourself, because it's really what makes you tick. It tickles your fancy. It's what gives you hope. It's what gives you mercy. It's what gives you understanding, and it puts the pep, it puts the stride back in your glory, and it eliminates the self-doubt, and it helps your decision making more easily, and it actually helps you to become more fluent within yourself and living more from that true source rather than trying to live in resistance to a lie or some sort of pathology or a lie maybe that your body has been used to living in, because the body can get used to, the thoughts can get used to, the emotions can get used to that. So learn to know the difference. Have a beautiful day. Peace out.